everyone. Welcome to another edition of Thought Leaders Live, where we talk with thought leaders in business, life, and all points in between. Today, very excited to have my friend Josh McKain joining us live. Josh, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Greg. And I noticed you left out of my introduction roller coaster engineer. I don't know why you skipped that part.
I was just about to get into that. Josh is the founder of Throughput Mastery, a group coaching program that helps manufacturing leaders increase efficiency, elevate their teams, and achieve sustainable growth. And he also executes some amazing roller coaster engineering. We'll get to that in just a second, Josh. But today, Josh is going to join us. He's going to talk about leveraging outside perspective to become a better leader. And I stumbled upon Josh and learned about his group coaching program, which I think, Josh, is really an amazing approach that you take with leaders and super smart. Can you tell us a little bit about your own personal journey and how you came to build Throughput Mastery, and maybe even expand on your roller coaster engineering for us?
Yeah, well, my journey, it starts the first day I ever rode a roller coaster is really where it all began. Uh, no, so my professional journey, if you look back, it's really a story of someone who was constantly given opportunities that he was not quite ready for and probably not quite prepared for and maybe did not deserve them. But through some sheer luck and relationships and networking and who knows what else, I've been given these opportunities and been fortunate that most of the time when I've stepped into them, they've gone well. I have definitely had some, but when I was in school, all the way, it goes back to when I was in college, accounting firm out to me, offered an interview, and I had never even heard of this firm before. I had no idea. I was so naive, I didn't even realize that my father-in-law had a relationship there and like told them I was in accounting. So they called me in for an interview. I have no clue how they called me. I was totally unprepared for it. Ended up working there as an intern because I was still in school for almost 3 years, just like faking it till I made it basically the whole way through. So I wasn't ready for that opportunity. And then through again some family connections, a company reached out to me and asked me to come work for them and do marketing for them. And I didn't really know what I was doing there either, but the opportunity kind of fell into my lap, and I went in, and it went okay enough that I kept getting to bounce different areas of that company. But all along in the back of my mind, as long as I've thought about here, I've thought I want to work for myself in some capacity. I want to start a company. Don't know when or where. And in 2021, the situation got really good. The stars aligned where I was comfortable leaving that company and going out and starting my own thing, but I didn't have the plan yet. So in 2021, I got really serious about it. My wife got on board and we were ready to go. Um, I was doing some strategic work for that company. My role was just strategic planning, basically. And um, I started to think, I bet I can do what I'm doing here for one client. I bet I can go out on my own and I can get 5 or 6 or 7 and do multiple. And then I'll be running my own business. I'll also be able to do what I'm doing now, which I really enjoy, which is the strategy piece. So I started working on getting some clients. Again, probably was not quite ready to run my own business based on some of the mistakes I've made since going out on my own. I definitely was not ready. I've proven that I was not ready for it, but kept my head above water long enough to here we're almost 3 years later. And the part that specifically got me into group coaching was I didn't know how I was going to get clients. I got a few before I left there, but I didn't really have a plan for more. So I started doing these little business seminars where I would invite 10 or 15 business owners, do a half day strategy session, kind of try and show them what I can do, and then hope that some of them would want to sign me for work. And at the end of those, several times people kept saying, have you ever considered doing a mastermind group? Have you ever considered turning these seminars into mastermind groups? And I had not, but when people were asking me for it, I thought that's probably a good idea. I had been a member of a mastermind in the past and really enjoyed it. So I started a couple of masterminds and they've gone through, this has been 2 years now in the making with the mastermind groups, probably. They've been through constant iteration and different versions. There's been in-person only, in-person plus virtual, virtual only, industry agnostic, manufacturing only, owners only, sales people only. It's been tons of different iterations and different changes. And finally, where we are now, we've landed on Throughput Mastery, which is a virtual mastermind program for manufacturing owners. That's where we've landed here. The longest background is in manufacturing. I love working with owners in the manufacturing industry. And I really almost can't even tell you why. I've got some theories, but there really is just something kind of magical to me about these group programs that I just really enjoy them. Even if only a few people show up for one of our meetings, I'm still jazzed and hyped up, and I'm super excited for hours afterwards because it's fun and I enjoy the interaction and what's learned there.
Um, Josh, I'm just going to hold you up for a second. You're a little spotty. You're breaking up a little bit. I just want to make sure you don't have any extra windows open or anything that could be impeding your signal right now.
I
And so
do
just,
other windows open.
yeah, just maybe close up anything just so we're not um, drawing on the signal at all. But um, I think that there is a real power in what you're doing, and Josh has had me on his show, and in which he invites several guests to join, and I've come on as a guest speaker, shared some thoughts, and then it's turned into a real roundtable with everybody. And I think everybody on the show totally got a lot of value out of that, Josh. But tell us a little bit about one of these mastermind sessions and what format you've come to settle on and what has been really effective for everybody involved.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You may not be able to tell yet, is my connection any more stable? I closed a bunch of
So
windows out.
far, so far, so good.
Okay. So the format that I like, I do some one-on-one coaching, and this isn't lack of confidence in my own strategic thinking and analysis and knowledge and education, but it is a belief in the power of the group where I know that if I get together a group of 10 business owners and I present to them for an hour, there's value in it. Certainly there is, but it's way less than if I get 10 business owners together and I say, all right, here's 3 questions for you all to think about. Now let's all of us share on this and share on our experiences, mistakes you've made and the successes that you've had. And I think that's 10 times more valuable than just me speaking. And so the format that most of my group sessions go in, I start almost every one by saying, if I'm the only one who's talking today, then this is a real missed opportunity. And, we're not maximizing time here. So I might do some teaching or coaching for 15 or 20 minutes. And even that is pretty collaborative. It's not just a 20-minute monologue. And then I open up the floor for everyone else on the call. And we usually just talk about things that are keeping them up at night. Is probably the easiest way to phrase it. So decisions they've got to make, opportunities they might be able to pursue, but they're not sure how, challenges that they're facing, personnel issues. So it's something that's just on their mind. And someone will say, I've got something that's really bugging me this week. And they'll share it with their group. And now instead of just me coaching them one-on-one, they've got 8, 9, 10 other people able to speak into that situation and say, I faced something similar just 6 months ago, and this is how I handled it. And these were the results. This is what I wish I would have been differently, what I would have done differently. So the the format is very open-ended and pretty informal and collaborative, and it allows for a lot of time, a lot of instances where someone's got a problem and I can think of 1 or 2 or 3 solutions, and then the group comes up with 2 or 3 more that I had never even thought of. And
Wow.
so you don't know which one's best. You have to just act on one and try it. But the more options you have, the better decision you can make.
I think what's so amazing about that is you're the trainer per se, uh, and you're going in with the subject matter knowledge, yet you're the one who's also learning as
Yeah.
well. I mean, and it's got a benefit for you that I don't know, did you anticipate that would happen as you when you started this, or was this suddenly like, whoa, I never thought about this incredible byproduct?
That is a great question, and it's hard to remember, exactly what my mindset was maybe 2 years ago. When it first started, I had a lot more pressure on myself that I sort of put on myself to be the one with the answers in the group. So I still sort of felt as though, even though it's a mastermind group and I'm familiar with those, I still felt like I sort of had to have answers whenever someone had a problem or a question or an opportunity or a decision to make. And so luckily, the group that I do now is not where I started. So the future of where I see my career going, these people never saw me running the first 6 months of mastermind groups that were nowhere near as good as they are today. So I
Sure.
got my feet over there, figured it out, and realized this is a lot more valuable when the answers aren't coming from me. It's a lot more well received when it's coming from peers. And so that's what I try to create now. So yeah, my mindset, I think I felt a little bit of a burden that if someone brought up a challenge and they didn't get a good solution from anyone in the group, then I would feel like I was worried that they would feel like they had wasted their time maybe. And so I felt like I had to have the answers to everything. Whereas now I know, sometimes there's just not an easy answer and not something we can come up with in an hour or two. So it's not the end of the world if we don't have an answer, but I do know that we're going to get better answers if I'm encouraging them to come from everyone else and not just me.
And it's got to be reassuring to everybody in the group to some degree to hear where everybody else is at and to hear that other people are struggling. I remember I was in a training session and it was kind of interesting. It was a group dynamic like you're talking about, but everybody was getting on at the beginning and talking about how well they did. And I got on and said, well, to be honest with you guys, I'm really struggling right now. And it just kind of opened the gates to everybody saying, yeah, you know what, I'm not doing too well either.
Hmm, hmm.
Um, do you find that dynamic kind of comes about naturally where people after a while just start to really share some of their struggles as well as their successes?
Yeah, it takes a little while. Like you said, the dynamic isn't always there on meeting one. Some people, they come in and they're just an open book from the very beginning. But most people are a bit more guarded and maybe not totally comfortable with the group yet. But this has been maybe 2 months ago. I'm trying to think back. Probably 2 months ago, we had there was a guy on the call. He's run successful manufacturing firms for the last 35, 40 years and is very good at it and well respected in the industry and by his peers and well respected on our calls and our mastermind groups. And he has a new opportunity that's much bigger than anything he's faced in the past. And so he came, and because he's been in the group for a while, he's comfortable with it. He just said, I don't really even know that I have a question for you all, but I'm just actually scared about this opportunity. This is a way bigger game than I've ever played before, higher stakes. The other people involved are maybe have more impressive resumes, and just sort of opened up to say, yeah, I don't really even know what I'm asking. I just sort of want to vent and just let you all know I'm scared and I'm nervous about this thing that I'm possibly undertaking. And
Wow.
that's the kind of thing that he didn't learn anything in that moment. He didn't get any, I mean, he did get some feedback on maybe how to alleviate that fear and how to look at it with a fresh perspective. So he did learn something and maybe get a new outlook. But really, he just wanted someone else to say, yeah, I've been there before. Yeah, I've done
Yeah.
some things I'm afraid of before. He just wanted to sort of feel heard in that moment.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I'm sure he highly valued that moment and that feedback he got. Josh, let's talk a little bit about the the how to actually turn this into a strategy. So you say, a rising tide lifts all boats. We've heard that expression before, and you say it's more than a saying; it's a strategy. Now, See how it's a strategy here with your program. Are you saying that CEOs and leaders can turn this into their own strategy?
Yeah, and I think the difference is, or how it's a strategy is, are you a learning organization that wants people at every level to grow and develop and be better at their jobs tomorrow than they were today? Are you a learning organization who wants to grow, or are you a stagnant organization that wants people focused 100% on execution and never on development, developing your people? And so making it a strategy is, so Patrick Lencioni wrote a book called The Advantage and talks about the greatest advantage any business has is their culture and their people. And so if your greatest advantage is building a team that's engaged and they're bought into what you're doing, but you handicap their knowledge and their decision making abilities and their experience and their education and their outlook on their career, on their role there, you're not capitalizing. You recognize, okay, our people are our biggest strength, and we're going to make them better every day. We're going to invest in them either through, maybe it's an education reimbursement fund or internal trainings or going to external mastermind groups like I do. Educating your people at all levels of the organization is a thing that feels good, and it's maybe a perk for attracting talent, but it is also a strategy of knowing that our people, we can hire anyone and we can invest in them and we can send them to programs that we believe in, and they will develop the skills that they need either for the first role that we want them to have or for the next role that we want them to have. It opens up your hiring pool. It makes your workforce better, even if regardless of the hiring pool. And it is an engagement tool, and it does show your people, we believe in you, we want you around for the long haul, we want to help you develop. So it's all of those things. It is a strategy that improves them all.
Let's talk a little bit about the second point you wanted to touch on and how to leverage this peer perspective to uncover blind spots. I think we probably got a good idea about new ideas, but talk about blind spots in particular and as well as new ideas.
Yeah, I think it's easiest to talk about this just with an example. If I'm facing a challenge in my business and I'm not sure how to go about solving it, I can think for days and come up with several ideas. Some of them are probably decent, but it's almost usually it's a little bit of labor, and it's not always easy because I'm so close to it. If I've got a friend who comes to me and says, "Josh, I'm thinking through this thing for my business. I'm not sure how to handle it." I can give them 15 in a minute on things that they could do because I don't have any blind spots about their business. I don't know all the ins and outs, but I also haven't been working in it for the last 3 or 4 years. I haven't developed those blind spots. So none of that is hidden to me. I'm looking at it with completely fresh eyes. There's some book, Rookie Mindset, something like that, that when you approach rookie mindset, you'll ask any question, you'll uncover any stone because nothing is too easy or obvious or elementary. But when you're working on your own business, sometimes it feels like you have to be a little bit more sophisticated, I think. So those blind spots, they just develop with familiarity. And like sometimes you can, with me, like my wife can do something and I can have a moment where maybe I'm more grateful than usually I would be. Like, she hung up my polo shirts the way I like and buttoned to the top button, something like that. Like, and I can ignore it for months on end because it's a blind spot that I've just got. And the same thing happens in business where you get this outside perspective and people can say, "No, dummy, look at this thing. It's so obvious if you would just open your eyes that, this is how you need to approach this, or this is the question you need to ask." I think that's all I have to say on that.
Yeah, no, very true. I mean, there's just some things you take for granted, and that fresh perspective is huge. Do you think part of those blind spots too, and that group dynamic allows for um, I don't know, maybe a safer space for a CEO to admit that maybe they don't know or they don't have the answers and they can kind of probe a little bit deeper. Because I would think for most leaders, they're leaders are supposed to know everything, right? I mean, they're supposed to be the expert on a lot of things, but it seems like in this kind of dynamic, that stuff can kind of bubble up and you can share it without, fear of repercussion or anything like that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I do believe that if your culture is right, as a leader, you should be totally willing to say, I don't know what we should do here. I don't know what the right move is. And you should be willing to do that. If your culture isn't right, I don't recommend that you just start saying, I don't know immediately if your people aren't ready.
Right.
But if they are ready, you should be willing to say that. But when you're not, or, when so maybe the culture isn't, you're not able to say that, or maybe it is an issue that maybe isn't as public in your company. Maybe it's just not even a thing that people are aware is an issue. And yeah, you can talk openly, you can ask questions, you can get advice without having to worry about any repercussions whatsoever. And there's huge value in not being able to speak 100% honestly. Huge.
Tell me a little bit about, because I'm curious now on with your cohorts, do you kind of have a sequence? Like we want to go through this, or is this kind of an ongoing cohort support group, peer group that you meet with regularly and bring in new topics and things like that?
So it's a little bit of both. We have some frameworks that we go through, and those are cyclical. Every 6 months, we will have gone all the way through it. We'll have cycled all the way through it, and we'll just restart and we'll go back to the beginning. We'll touch on it again, and there's more to learn and more to implement and more to change as we go back. But it's also an ongoing thing, continually becoming sharper and making better decisions. And, just because you go through an 8-week training program doesn't mean that you're not going to get a new challenge that wasn't addressed in that training or that you've never seen before a week or two after that. The business environment is always changing. There's always new personnel issues, always new decisions to make, always new questions from customers that you've never heard someone think about it in that way before. And it's good to always have someone, it's through mastery, or your local chamber of commerce might have something, or some friends that have been in business for a while too, someone that you can go to and say, hey, I've never seen this before. What do you think about this? Super.
Yeah. Well, one last point. Let's kind of wrap this up with this concept that everybody has something to teach and everybody has something to learn.
Yeah, that's something that I haven't run into too many people who would outwardly say they disagree with that. So it's not something that like gets me riled up, but it's something I fully believe. And anyone who would agree with that, I would argue with them on it. But I think we all have lived different experiences. We've all learned different things. And even someone who knows nothing. So you run a machine shop and you're bringing someone in, it's their first day. They have no experience in machining whatsoever. They can't tell you how to make parts better. They can't tell you anything about process flow, but maybe they worked at Chick-fil-A and they can tell you all about customer service. Or maybe they can just come in and look at fresh eyes with your process and just ask, why are we doing it this way? At first blush, when you were explaining it, I thought you were going to say that we would do it option B, but you actually said option A. Why are we doing it that way? So even someone who knows nothing about what you're doing, that goes back to that rookie mindset. That's a good thing where they can ask those unknown questions. So to act as though, I've achieved all human knowledge and, nobody can teach me anything, even in my arena. Someone would probably say, yeah, if I go to the zoo, they can tell me about the animals that are there. But if they come into my shop, they can't tell me anything. I think that mindset is just ridiculous. And again, this isn't like some passionate belief that I hold that no one else holds. Most people would agree with that, but it's something that is the backbone of the groups. So yeah, I'm a believer that anyone who comes on our calls, whether they just started a company or whether they've been running one for 35 years, they both have something to teach each other.
Yeah, and I like the and maybe you can maybe explain what you think this means, but I've heard this a lot that if you really want to learn something, teach it to somebody else.
Mm.
Do you agree with that? And then why do you think that that helps you learn something better?
Yeah, I do 100% agree with that. And I'll even give another example. I don't know why it is. First off, I'm sort of processing that. Why is it that teaching something helps you learn so much? So maybe I'm stalling right now. But another, if you really want to clarify your thinking or understand something better, try to type it into Chat GPT and ask it for help. I do that a lot where maybe I'm starting to brainstorm something and I want to come up with a few new ideas. I'll head over to Chat GPT, but then I've got to explain it so clearly that there's no misunderstanding to get a good result that I have to slow down and really explain it well and go into all the ins and outs. And half the time I end up just copying what I typed in and well, there we go. I did it. I'm done. Because it just forces you to slow down and explain it better. And so that's again, it probably goes back to the blind spots a little bit, where if you're explaining something to someone, you don't know what they know or don't know. So you've got to be really and so you've got to touch every point and you've got to boil it down like a kid just asking why until they get over and over again until they get, to the first principles. You kind of have to do that when you're explaining it. Yeah, totally a believer in that.
Yeah. Um, Tell me a little bit as we're getting close to the end of the hour, but I want to get one more question in for you. What are the biggest things that you're seeing coming out of your cohorts? What are some of the biggest challenges facing manufacturers right now?
Biggest challenge without a doubt is personnel, hiring, onboarding, training, engaging after they're hired, retaining, all across the spectrum at every stage. One person might have sort of solved hiring, might have that down, but they're maybe not quite as good at getting to take on a culture of ownership. And that's probably a bad example because if you've solved hiring, that means you've got a really great culture and people want to come work for you. So you kind of have solved all five. Somebody might be really good at training, but once they get the person trained for the job, they hired them, maybe they're not quite as good at getting that person ready to be elevated to a new position. So it's, if you get one piece right, that doesn't mean that you've just solved the personnel problem. That is by far the most prevalent thing I see.
And I want to ask you, follow up on that. What do the CEOs think their role is in that whole hiring culture uh, picture? And what are some of the ones who are having success? What are they finding works in terms of their
There's
own person, in terms of their personal role? Because I believe CEOs, and from what I was just had Chris Lukey and Jay Call on here yesterday, and they were talking about how the CEOs need to be more visible and need to be out there.
hmm hmm Yeah, yeah, 100%. And there's really two schools of thought on hiring, and I haven't found a lot in between. So one group of CEOs says hiring is a problem, and I'm the CEO, so I need to be involved in fixing it. And then they might take any number of approaches to doing that, to fixing it, but they believe that they're involved. I don't know if that fully answers your question. That might be a little bit of a cop out. But the second school of thought is hiring is a problem, and it's because the younger generations are lazy and they don't want to work and they're not interested in manufacturing. And that's just the way it is, and I'll never change it. So I give up. I have nothing to do with
Okay.
it. Those are really the two schools that I see is one says it's a problem and any problem in my business, I need to try and fix it. The other one just sort of passes blame off to the younger people, so to speak. And this is something, so I had said that, I wasn't um, in a lot of like arguments with people over everyone can learn from everyone. I will argue this forever. I'm a not very argumentative person by nature, but people who just blame the younger generation for being lazy and for the source of all of our hiring problems makes me very mad. And I'll start arguments with that, or I'll take up an argument if someone is trying to have it there uh, any day of the week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Josh. It's like, I mean, we both have, my kids are a little older than your kids, but we both have kids. We were kids
Yep.
at one point,
Yep.
and we all went through our own struggles. And it's not like this generation is, intentional about not wanting to do anything or whatever those
Yep.
stereotypes are. And they're probably saying the same thing about me when I was younger
Yep.
and you when you were younger. And I mean, it's like people are people, right? I mean, and you have to kind of figure out a way to meet them halfway
Yep.
and understand
Yep.
where they're coming from if you're going to improve the situation.
There's something we're maybe losing the thread a little bit here, but there's a quote or some writing. I need to have it for sure. I need to know what this exactly is so I can actually use it when I'm talking to someone. I'm pretty sure it was from Aristotle in like 300 BC, and he was complaining about how the younger generation is lazy and they only care about laying around and playing games and relaxing with their friends. And I told someone that recently, and they were like, "Well, yeah, but this one's different." I'm like, "Okay." So we're going on like 2,300 years here, but this is finally the one.
This is it.
Come-
Oh yeah, I don't think we've evolved all that much. I agree right there with you, Josh. So we're at the top of the hour. This has been a great chat. I really appreciate you coming on. I I really love your approach, and I think that, as just listening to you talk, I'm applying it to my own business and what I could do. And I think everybody listening to this should do the same because I think you're really onto something important here, not only just about way to improve your learning process, but just how to improve your overall communication and grow as a leader. So I commend you on this really great stuff you're working on, and please keep us posted on things you develop and come up with. And I want to take just a minute for you to talk a little bit about how people can reach you and the show that you are putting on every week that I think is super valuable.
Yeah, thank you for having me on and for the kind words. If anybody wants to stay in touch, I'm on LinkedIn. My profile is just Josh McKain, McKain. And the show that I run is called The Throughput Show. It's a live show just like this with a studio audience, so to speak, and there's Q&A back and forth. So I've got guests on there, subject matter experts, and you can ask them questions in real time, and then it's all recorded and turned into a podcast if you miss the show.
Yeah, I think it's because the studio audience is interactive with it too. You get a feel for what Josh does with his cohort. So thanks again, Josh, and thank you to everyone for joining us. And we'll see you next time on Thought Leaders Live.
Thanks, Greg.